Welcome to GCU, the University for the Common Good. My name is Abigail Noble from The Impact. I'm here at GCU speaking about social change for finance.
I'm Tania Carnegie from KPMG, speaking at GCU New York's town hall event about social change through finance. At KPMG, we are investing in building out the capacity of the impact investing ecosystem.
I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about my experience and my journey. I have built a career working with financial institutions, private and public companies, and I'm fascinated by visionary entrepreneurs who have created entirely new businesses, products that have just completely changed our daily routines and the way we communicate. Now, volunteering is something that's also been a very important part of my life for as long as I can remember. And over the past 10 years, I've spent time in indigenous communities in various parts of the world, including Africa and India. And, really spending time in the communities with people who are living in the depths of poverty. These are communities where people don't have appropriate housing, they don't have access to clean water, children don't have quality education opportunities, and quite simply, the families just don't have enough to eat. Now, through the time that I've spent in similar isolated communities here in North America, as well as urban communities, it's been shocking for me to see that these same issues, often issues that we think of as being, happening elsewhere, are really prevalent here at home as well. And through my volunteer work, I've had the opportunity to work with some really talented social entrepreneurs who have the same passion, creativity, and determination as the business leaders that I work with. These social entrepreneurs have defied all those who said you can't be successful, you'll never make it work, that the challenges that they're trying to overcome are simply too complex. But instead, what these social entrepreneurs are doing is they're developing and implementing sustainable, community-based, business-based solutions that are breaking the cycle of poverty. And I've seen entire communities transform as a result. These experiences have been incredibly humbling and have caused me to step back and think about my own career path a little bit. But I have to say, I found it really frustrating feeling like I had to make a choice between the career and business that I loved and the difference that I wanted to make, or feeling like I had to make a difference through my volunteer work. There's so much that I want to do, there's so much that needs doing, and my time and philanthropy budget can only go so far. And as it turns out, other people are wrestling with the same choice as well, but not just the challenge from a career perspective, but the challenge that they feel as consumers and as investors. Now, a growing number of investors in particular are seeking more choices for their investment portfolio because not only do they want to earn a financial return, but they're also seeking to generate a positive social or environmental return through their assets. Impact investing enables positive social and environmental solutions at a scale that neither purely philanthropic support nor traditional investments can achieve. And what investors are finding appealing is the opportunity to fund companies and projects that are driving solutions to some of the massive social, economic, and environmental challenges that exist. Investments can be in for-profit or not-for-profit entities, in investment funds, in projects, or in new vehicles like social impact bonds. Needless to say, impact investing, it's a big tent. And with such a wide range of opportunities, it's easy to understand why it stimulates really lively discussion, not only about what it is, but about why it's important. There's growing recognition that new approaches are needed that engage all sectors and all forms of capital to address the increasing complexity and scale of the challenges that we're facing that are too great to be solved through traditional philanthropy or government alone. Impact investing is not intended to replace grants or to sideline philanthropy. Rather, it's about bringing new capital into the market with a new investment mindset. The benefit of impact investing for organizations that typically receive donations or grants include the ability to move towards greater self-reliance, to fund and expand operations by reducing dependency on grants and helping to diversify their funding base and to access expertise as well as dollars. But as I noted a moment ago, impact investing isn't just about nonprofits. It presents an opportunity to invest in for-profit companies that embody a new role for business and indeed a new way of doing business, one that places social purpose alongside profitability. Businesses that are working to solve challenges that I've experienced as a volunteer, not through their corporate foundation, but through their corporate strategy. Fortunately, the number of companies in this category are growing, which will increase the potential impact investment opportunities. And the need for this shift in corporate mindset is exemplified by the global goals for sustainable development that were adopted at the UN last month, which represents a really unique call to action for business. These are 17 goals with 169 specific targets, all designed to accomplish three main objectives: to end extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and to fix climate change around the world, not just in the developing world, all by 2030. Corporate leaders were at the table during the planning process, recognizing the important role that business and investment have to play, and not just from a philanthropic perspective, in order to achieve success over the next 15 years. More and more companies are developing innovative approaches to address social and environmental challenges and to grow their business at the same time. Companies that seize opportunities to fulfill unmet basic needs with integrity in ways that develop local infrastructure, creates employment opportunities, and improves lives without compromising dignity or in a way that pits impact against profit. And the idea is simple. How do you create measurable business value in a way that also creates value for society by identifying and addressing social problems that are relevant to business? An example is Grameen and Danone Foods, a joint venture to fight malnutrition between Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, who is chancellor of GCU, and the multinational public company Danone. This commercial approach addresses nutritional needs, job creation, and environmental protection at the core of its business model. And because they're using a market-based approach, the business is self-sustaining, and the profits are reinvested to support growth and to help more people. The initiative aligns to Danone's mission of bringing health through food to as many people as possible. Fortune magazine recently launched their first Change the World list. The goal is simple: to shine a spotlight on 51 companies that are doing good as part of their profit-making strategy, and to shed new light on the power of capitalism to improve the human condition. Companies on the list include Vodafone, Cisco, Google, and Toyota. Thousands of companies are signatory to the UN Global Compact, and hundreds of asset owners and investment managers have voluntarily committed to the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. These are important examples that demonstrate acknowledgement from within the business community that we cannot continue with the status quo, and increasing recognition that the purpose and contribution of business is much greater than simply the pursuit of financial results. Profitability is the outcome of doing many things right. The more companies that incorporate this thinking into their business strategy, the more diverse the options for impact investors. Common questions that I'm asked are about whether business can really be successful at achieving a social impact and achieve financial success, and what sort of returns should an impact investor expect? Well, to answer the first question, look to PR firm Edelman and their 15th annual Trust Barometer that they published this past January, which is based on a survey of 30,000 people in 27 countries. 81% of those surveyed believe that a company can take specific actions that both increase profits and improve the economic and social conditions in the community where it operates. To answer the second question, look to a study by Morgan Stanley, earlier this year that found that investing in sustainability has usually met and often exceeded performance of comparable traditional investments on an absolute and risk-adjusted basis across asset classes and over time. Like traditional investors, the impact investors I speak with are simply looking for good deals to invest in. The difference is they have a higher purpose for their portfolio than just financial returns. Again, according to a Morgan Stanley study, 71% of investors are interested in impact investing, but this figure jumps to 84% of millennial investors surveyed. Overall, millennials were found to be more likely to integrate sustainability into their purchasing decisions also. Now, this is significant for business because we're in the midst of a massive intergenerational transfer of wealth, estimated to be around 60 trillion over the next 50 years. And within the next 5 years, 1 out of every 3 adults is a millennial. So for business, I mean, these aren't just your customers, these are your future owners, and they have some pretty significant expectations. But it's not just millennials. You know, Abigail is CEO of The Impact, a nonprofit membership-based organization for investors through their foundations, family offices, and their businesses to make impact investments, as well as who've made a commitment to make impact investments, as well as to track their social impact and financial performance, and to share their learnings with others to help make things more efficient and to bring more people into the impact investing fold. In closing, I'd like to encourage each of you to think about how you might explore what is possible in your lives. If you're in business, think about how the core value proposition of your company might be able to address or be relevant to one of the global goals. If you're an investor, let your financial advisor know that this is something that's important to you. If you're an NGO, consider whether investment capital could help support the growth of your mission. And if you're in government, well, think about some of the policy changes that are necessary, or think about some of the other things that you might do to create an enabling environment for impact investing to grow. Thank you so much.
So I've been thinking, impact investing and the act of doing well and doing good at the same time seems like a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And there are many big opportunities in this space, evidenced by BlackRock and Bain moving into it. Why hasn't it accelerated more, and what are some of the challenges in actual investment products coming to market?
Yeah, I think one of the big opportunity areas is around awareness building. I think there are a core group of people who are incredibly engaged and supportive. And I think that from a broader engagement perspective, there's so much more that needs to be done. I think we're so used to thinking about social impact as something that happens through our philanthropy or our volunteerism or through not-for-profits, when there's so much more opportunity, and it's just not on people's radar.
Yeah. And do you find that other banks and other financial services institutions are moving into this space?
I'm finding that they're curious about it. But I think one of the things that they're really looking for is for their clients to be telling them that this is something that's important, and to help give that feedback, which can then help steer their direction.
A lot of times when you have impact, it actually drives consumer or customer loyalty. Mm-hmm. It reduces risk. Mm-hmm. And I imagine through a lot of the conversations you're having with business, they're trying to unlock this puzzle.
And, you know, that ability to have a social impact, you know, I think, and what I'm seeing is it's something that's inherent in most businesses. It's an asset that's there that's just waiting to be taken advantage of. It's waiting to be unlocked. And often it's something that's very close to the mission of an organization. I mean, you take the example of Danone or Unilever or other organizations that are in the healthcare space. You know, this is what they do. And there are new opportunities to be thinking about, well, how can we expand into new markets? How can we think about how our product or service, you know, can reach people where, you know, maybe right now they're only having access through donations, but maybe there's a way that we can find a market-driven solution that is a lot more sustainable, and some of the pharmas have done that.
Yeah. And in your work with businesses, do you find that they often come to you saying that they want to incorporate more social impact or social strategy into their work? Or is it something where they back into it? Like, what are some examples of businesses that you've worked with and how that's evolved?
The starting point for most is we want to understand this because we understand what we do out of our corporate foundation, or we understand what we do out of our philanthropic programs or partnerships. So I'm finding a lot are really in the exploration stage. And even nonprofits are in that exploration stage, really trying to understand, okay, we've got our donors coming to us and they're talking about impact investing and it's coming up at the board and our staff are talking about it. So how do we understand what it is? But I think most importantly, taking it down to that granular level of how is this relevant for us? And then thinking about how can this complement some of our programs? How can this complement some of what our fundraising team is doing? And for companies, putting social impact into their scorecards, that's a new opportunity area. But I'm finding that there's real interest in that. In particular, as customers are starting to ask these questions, employees and potential employees who they're recruiting are starting to ask these questions. So, these kinds of things are really putting it on the radar.
Yeah, and asking questions is very much an important first step. How does the average individual get involved in impact investing?
So I think it's starting with simple things like recognizing that each one of us every day makes financial choices through the things that we buy, through the companies that we choose to support, through our purchasing habits, even through the companies that we support through our own investment portfolios and mutual funds. So I think it's looking at some of the companies, like that are on the Fortune list, to say, okay, well, what are the companies that I think are doing, really good work, where I see where they're going, and I think that, that's something that I want to get involved with. And then as an owner, as a shareholder, you've got a say. It might not be a huge say, but you still can participate in that process depending on what your ownership is.
You also mentioned employees. What do you think makes an engaged employee in a large business? And then the other question is, when you think about talent and people who want to move into the impact investing space or the social impact space, what is it they can do before they get a big job? A big job in impact, yeah.
Right. So from an engaged employee perspective, I think the fundamentals are people feeling like they're making a difference, people feeling like they're being heard, that they have the opportunity to contribute. One of the things that we've done at KPMG is we have run a purpose campaign internally, and we've asked all of our people to share with us what they feel their purpose is in coming into the office every day and coming to work. And the response, it's just been overwhelming. The number of people who identify with making a difference through the purpose of the companies that they work for, even the purpose that they find in helping other people to be successful in their careers. That's one of the pieces of advice that I give to students or people who are starting out in their career or going through a transition when they say, oh, I want to have a job with impact. I want to have a job where I really feel like I can make a difference. I counsel them to really look at the company that you work for. And if you're doing something that you're really excelling in your skill set and you're feeling like you're growing and you're having that opportunity to progress and really contribute, and your values really align with the values of that company, it doesn't really matter what your job title is. If you're in the right environment, you'll have that opportunity to contribute new ideas that might end up being something that becomes a core part of strategy over time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. So we do have questions from the audience, which I think
Exciting.
You spoke about companies paying attention to clients' wants and needs in terms of social impact. But what can companies do to induce customers to be more socially and environmentally engaged?
I think from a company perspective, really reaching out to your customers and talking about the kinds of things that are important to you, and making it known how you are embedding that into the products or services that you are offering to really help engage your customers or your clients through that process.
Mm-hmm. The national political arena is in conflict over issues such as globalization, climate change, sustainability, distribution of wealth, etc. Does corporate America have a role to play in the national dialogue on these issues?
I think they do, and I think that the corporate community demonstrates what's important and demonstrates its role through its actions in looking at how it's making its products and services more accessible, how food-based organizations are looking at solving challenges around food deserts, or providing nutritious food options where currently that there aren't. I mean, I think that there's a lot that the corporate America or corporate Canada can do.
Yeah.
But I think what's really important is that it's not just about what the corporate community can do or what government could or should be doing or investors over here. I mean, there really needs to be a coming together.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that impact investing can help do, is really bring together networks of like-minded people from different sectors who are convening around issues. And sometimes that might include companies from the same industry who are otherwise competitors, thinking about, okay, well, how is it that we can work together collaboratively to help drive solutions?
Yeah.
There's lots of other spaces, there's lots of other areas where we can compete, but on this, we're going to figure out how we make this better for everybody. I think the potential is massive. It's figuring out how do we get as many people into the tent as possible, with a lot of diverse options, and working on solving some of the challenges that exist around measurement. How do we make this a lot more straightforward and streamlined for financial institutions, for not-for-profits, for investors or philanthropists, to really be able to zero in on what works. I think there's big opportunities there, from an investing perspective, looking at some of the challenges around liquidity. But I think the more activity, the more movement, the more that these issues will dissipate.
Agree. I think we're about out of time. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's been a great conversation, and we look forward to continuing it. Or maybe a little bit of drinks.
Great, thank you.
It's interesting to hear other individuals that work within impact investing and what the issues they see are confronted in front of companies and individuals.
I think it's just interesting to hear that the language is kind of becoming more mainstream. So things like sustainability, used to be that it was a very niche word, and it required definition. Now it's something we could just kind of say, sustainability. So seeing that a lot of those words, or hearing that a lot of those words are kind of, they've defined themselves, and that they're being able to use in kind of a business context without seeming like they're coming from left field.
Recent research has shown that over the next several decades, an estimated $59 trillion of wealth is going to transfer from one generation to the next. And studies have also shown that about 60% of the wealth is lost when it's inherited by the second generation, and by the third generation, over 90%.
I'm inspired by the statistic that 84% of millennial investors are interested in impact investing. With the massive transfer of wealth that's scheduled to happen over the next 50 years, this is going to have a tremendous impact, not only for the financial community, but for our community as a whole.